Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. I'm Miss Lisa, and this is my YouTube channel where we talk about everything I want to that's science and math. And today we're talking about biology. We're going to talk about plant reproduction and development, and I'm wearing my party hat. I always like to wear my party hat on the last day of a class, and this is it. Yay, we made it! This is the end of what we're going to do. It's not the whole book. There's another unit on environmentalism. But if you're watching these in order as I'm releasing them, we have made it to May, so that's when we quit. We have done enough to count for this class. And in fact, that's one thing that as a public school teacher, we usually would not finish a whole book. If we did 2/3, that was considered good enough. And you can also notice, as homeschoolers, you might notice that at the end of the book, it repeats what you do the next year, like in math. So for most classes, you don't have to do the whole book. So we're not going to do the whole book because that's all we have time for biology. But if you want to do a little extra learning, you just go for it. You read that book and learn it. So anyway, this is the last one we're going to do. It's chapter 23. Even though there are later chapters I've done, it's because the plant chapters were in the middle of the book, and that hit in February when there were no plants around to look at and to use for lab. And I'm frugal. I'm not going to go buy lab supplies when they are right out in my backyard. There are leaves, there are stems, there are with And today what we're talking about is reproduction in plants. So just like with animals, well, with the animal kingdom, we won't really say animals, that plants can reproduce sexually or asexually. Do you remember what those words mean? Sexually means it takes a partner. Asexually means they can do it all by themselves. And plants in particular are great at reproducing asexually. There's a lot of different ways. So one way is by roots. If you've ever planted potatoes, you look on the potato, and wherever there's an eye, that can grow into a new plant. So you can cut the potatoes as long as there's an eye and a piece of the potato and plant it, and it will grow into a plant. Now, I told you in those other videos that I do not have a green thumb. So I tried this before, and it didn't work. And the reason why is because my potatoes, with that exposed potato there, like what you eat, it got a fungus, and so it died. So if you buy potatoes at the feed and seed or at Tractor Supply or the nursery, wherever it is you're going to plant your potatoes, and you get seed potatoes and they've been cut like that where you grow them from the root, they have usually been dipped in a fungicide. They're like pink. They've got a pink powder on them, and that's to keep them from being ruined like mine was. But live and learn. Learn that it's not as easy to grow potatoes from roots as I thought it would. Now, if you take the whole potato, like one potato plant makes a lot of potatoes. If you take each one of those potatoes and plant them as a whole potato, then they don't get the fungus on them because the skin of the potato protects them. So I didn't know though. I wanted to cut them up and make a bunch of potatoes. I've never had good luck growing potatoes, but that doesn't surprise you because I told you I'm no good at growing things. I don't have a green thumb. So tubers are underground roots, and it has stored food like a potato. Now, another way things can asexually reproduce is with leaves. And you can take a leaf like, what is the name of that plant? A coleus. You can take a coleus leaf and put it in water, and it will send out roots, plant it, and you've got yourself a new coleus plant. So there are plants you can root from the leaves, and the leaves themselves is all it needs for asexual reproduction. Remember, I told you that if it's asexually reproduced, that it's making a clone. It will be genetically identical to the parent plant, but it doesn't mean that it's like got the parent plant's brain. Remember, clones are like identical twins to their own organism. They just happen to have the same genetic blueprint. Okay, so another way that things can reproduce asexually, plants, is with stems. If you've ever seen a spider plant or strawberries, they send out a runner, a stem, where it hits the ground, it'll put into roots and it'll grow into a new plant. So also bushes will do this. You'll have a bush and one of the stems will get over in the dirt, and then dirt gets kicked over on it. It'll make roots and it will grow into a new bush. I have bushes in front of my house that I don't want to keep creeping forward, so I'm always trying to pull those stems up if they get down the dirt, because they'll make new plants. But I have my hydrangea bush I told you about before, that it makes new hydrangea bushes, and I cut them off and go plant them in the right place, and they're all happy. So I need one more hydrangea bush to root. So if you want it to root this way, what you can do is you can take one of the stems and lay it down, one of the, stems coming up from the ground of the bush. You lay it on the ground, put dirt on top of it and a rock, and leave it there. After a while, it'll send down roots. You cut it off where its attachment is to the parent plant, maybe let it grow a little bit more, scoop it up, and you can make your own plants. People used to, especially in the South was poor from the Civil War to the 70s. Reconstruction, not much got reconstructed. And so everybody in the South was really poor for a real long time. So people didn't go to nurseries and fancy places like that to buy plants. They would just get them from their friends, and they're called pass-along plants. And decorative bushes were definitely like that. People would just root them like that, and then they'd pass them on. And then flowers that like send off a lot of shoots or have a lot of plants grow up from it, those get passed along a lot too. So like I have a Rose of Sharon bush, and that thing puts out all these baby Rose of Sharon every year, and I've passed them along. Everybody who wants a Rose of Sharon, I've got them, because it just makes a bunch every year, and it's something that's real easy to pass along, a free plant to your friends. So you should always share plants. And our government here in Dallas, where I live, Dallas, Georgia, not Texas, they have a co-op where they have like Master Gardener days, and you can come swap plants. So like, you've got too many daylilies, and then you've thinned them out, and somebody else has got too many calla lilies. That you can swap and get a variety. So that's really fun. So that's a little project you could do, is maybe organize within your homeschool group, if it's spring, a plant swap, and have everybody look around and see, what's something that I can contribute to this. And if you don't have extra plants like extra daylilies, you can make them by these asexual reproduction techniques. You could, root some plants. You could try rooting, leaves and making a bunch, or you could even do vegetables, and try to make a bunch of plants and have a plant swap. I think that would just be terrific fun. So you should do that. But anyway, so that's another way that plants can reproduce, is by sending off shoots where new ones grow. There's another one called a Hen and Bitty. And it's this sort of cactusy looking plant, but it'll send out shoots with the babies, which are called the bitties, the hen and bitties. That's another one that's fun. Bulb plants like onions can also actually reproduce through stems. They'll get this little stem on the side, and then it will make a new bulb, and then you can break those bulbs apart, and each of them will be their own plant. Another one that's really easy to pass along is monkey grass, or what is its other name? Something like Lariopy. I think that's it. But anyway, monkey grass, you got a bunch of it. You break it into little pieces, put each one in a pot, or like an egg cup or something, and they'll each root, and they each will become a big bunch of monkey grass. I needed some monkey grass because I was having an erosion problem. And one way that you can naturally take care of erosion is through planting things. So like I have a fig tree planted where part of my driveway was trying to wash away at the edge of it, and it works great, and I get figs from it because those roots help hold the soil. But I had a place where the dirt was kind of sandy, and my flower bed kept washing away. So my mom brought a bucket, like, not that big, a Home Depot bucket, with monkey grass in it. So, this much monkey grass. And I broke it up into little pieces. And I keep doing that, and I have, 20, 30, 40 times as much monkey grass as I started with, because I just keep, if I have a clump of it, I'll break it into a bunch of little clumps, and each little sprig will grow into a clump. So I'm using it wherever I have erosion problems. I had erosion problems in the front, it fixed it. So now I'm starting to take it and move it to the back and take care of my erosion problems there. I grew up with and where I used to live, the soil was very heavy clay, and it didn't really erode. But where we live now, the soil is a little more sandy, and it washes away if you don't have roots holding it still. So that's a good way to do it. Another way you can use stems or to propagate a plant to have asexual reproduction is cuttings. So if there's a plant that you want to make more of, you just cut some off, stick it in water. Sometimes you have to coat it in growth hormone, rooting compound, and they sell that in a little envelope at the, nurseries, Home Depot, places like that. And you dip the stem in that, and sometimes that helps, or add it to the water, and it will it'll help it develop roots off the plant to be the cutting. I wanted a yellow bell bush or a forsythia from my mom's house. I had one at my old house, and I wanted one at my new house. And so I just cut off some blooming sprigs, stuck them in water, and left them there. Even after it quit blooming, I left the sprigs in the water, and they all made roots. And I went and planted them out in the yard, and they're doing great. So just cutting off those blooming sticks, those blooming sprigs off of the forsythia bush, I was able to get a bunch of new forsythia bushes that I planted, and those things will grow forever. They'll take over if you don't keep them cut back, but they're really pretty because they're one of the first things that bloom in early spring. So they're yellow and cheerful, and everything's still gray. The trees still don't have leaves, and there's those yellow bells or forsythia. So pretty. So that's a real easy pass along plant. Like, you really can't mess that up. For a lot of ones like that root very easily, you don't need any rooting hormone. Forsythia, blooming quince, a lot of things like that, you don't need a rooting hormone. But you can do some research if you want to root a plant and see if it's necessary or not. Usually I'll try it without the rooting hormone first, because why bother? Why use a chemical that you don't need? Why pay for a chemical you don't need? So usually I'll just try it, and usually it works. Another thing is grafting. There are a lot of plants where we desire a certain thing, a pretty flower, a fruit, something like that. But maybe the root system that would naturally be on that plant isn't good, isn't strong, it's not hardy. It might be more susceptible to disease or something like that. So they will take the root of one plant and the base of it, and they'll cut it at jagged, and then they'll take the other plant that they like better, and they'll stick them together like my fingers are being stuck together, and then tape it up, and it will grow together. And you'll have that hardy base with the new top. The first time I was ever aware of this is dogwood trees. Dogwood trees are normally white, but sometimes they're pink. Well, at the end of my street growing up, there was a house that had a dogwood tree that was pink and white. And I was like, I want one of those. Where do you get the pink and white? And it's that they had taken pink branches and grafted it into the white tree, making it pink and white. They don't come in pink and white. It has to be grafted together. So that's used a lot in commercial agriculture, grapes, apple trees, things like that. They will, and roses. I have, one time I had a rose bush that made white roses, and I pruned it too much. So I was below the graft line. So when it came back, it does orange roses instead. And it was like a regular rose with lots of whorls of petals, and the new one is a flat rose, more like a Cherokee rose. So I cut off what was grafted on, but it's very healthy, and I think the orange roses are just as pretty. I think it was a happy accident, serendipity. All right. So that's asexual reproduction. Now, sexual reproduction of flowers is the flower. The flower is the in plants is flowers. So the remember how we talked about sexual organisms have sexual organs? Well, the sexual organ in plants is flowers, and it's got male parts and female parts. Now there are some plants that are male plants and female plants, only producing egg or sperm, or seed or sperm, whatever we would call it, but sperm actually is technically seed. We'll just call it egg and sperm. And then there are certain plants that have certain flowers that are male or female, and they might have them both on the same plant. And then there are other flowers that have both male and female parts. So we will start talking, and that's your regular flower, has both male and female parts. So we're going to talk about that first. So if you have a book, then turn to page 489 and you can see a flower. But if not, go get a flower. Get a picture of a flower, okay? So the parts of a flower is it's got petals that are like the colored looking leaves that go around. But then in the middle, it's got a center shaft, okay? That's the female part of the plant. And then whirled around that center shaft or like a bunch of little hairs coming up that kind of have like little lumps on each end. That's the male part of the plant, okay? So you got petals. The male part of the plant are called stamen. And see how it says men in it? So you can remember the stamen are the male part of the plant. The pistil is that middle part, which sounds like a pistol, like a gun, and it's bigger. So it's sort of like a gun in the middle, okay? And down at the base of the female part is the ovary. And the ovary is the part that holds what will develop into the new seeds. So that's all part of the female part of the plant. So the female sex cells are in the ovary. The male sex cells, the sperm, are on the stamen up at the very top. Now, plants can fertilize themselves. The stamen can come over and touch the top of the pistil, and then the sperm can go down and fertilize the seeds. Flowers can also fertilize other flowers, and that's why all the pollen blows around every spring. Here in Georgia, we have lots of tree pollen. Everything turns green in the spring. It's like it frosted, but it's pollen. So then with a lot of plants, that ovary is the fruiting body of the plant. Is what is sort of like the womb. Is what protects those developing seeds once fertilization happens. And for a lot of plants, that fruiting body is something that the plant uses for seed dispersal by making it food and desirable to other organisms, so that they will pick it and eat it and take it with them while they're eating it, and then drop the seed somewhere else, and it will cause seed dispersal. So there's a silly argument whether or not something is a tomato or fruit, okay? Real biologists do not have this argument. These are non-biologists having a silly argument, because what holds the seeds in plant is the fruiting body. Does that mean it's a fruit? Does that mean it's sweet? No. And in our common language, fruits are sweet and non-fruits, vegetables, are savory. And that's our common language. But it doesn't really fit. Like with carrots, we think of them as a vegetable. It's a root. But with tomatoes, it is what contains the seed, so it's the fruiting body of the plant. Does that make a fruit? No, it's the fruiting body. There's a lot of things that are the fruiting body. Apples are the fruiting body. The apple is surrounding the seeds. Strawberries are the fruiting body. The seeds are on the outside, but it's still the fruiting body. Now, usually you think of the fruiting body as surrounding the seeds and protecting it. With strawberries, the seeds are on the outside and the fruit part is on the inside, but it's still what the seeds developed on. Figs. Figs have the seeds on the inside. The fig is the fruiting body. But So, but like rhubarb, you might think of it as a fruit. It's a stem. It's a sweet stem. So, real biologists don't go into this argument. I always have kids want to say, Miss Blackburn, what's the truth? It's not real. As biologists, we look at carrots as a root. We look at sugarcane as a stem. We look at, apples as the fruiting body. Green beans. The green bean is the fruiting body of the bean plant. What is inside the green bean? The beans. It's the fruiting body. Everybody wants to know if a tomato is a fruit, but nobody goes, a green bean is a fruit. Well, yeah, it's the fruiting body. No, it's not fruit. It's savory. It's not sweet. It's trying to take, a lot of places, we have words in science that have a common language definition too, and that they are the same word, and they're even related, but they're used differently in science than they are in common speech, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be the same. All right, so pollination is the sex act among plants. It is as the pollen, the male sex cell, pollinates and fertilizes the seed, the female sex cell that will become, and then together they're both haploid, and then it becomes diploid. It has the full set of chromosomes, and it grows into the new plant. Now, if it is pollinated by itself, it's self-pollinated. If it is pollinated by a different plant, it's cross-pollinated. And people who breed plants will, on purpose, cross-pollinate. And, I like gardening. I'm just not very good at it. And a lot of people who grow squash, make sure they cross-pollinate the plants. They'll get up in the morning with a Q-tip, and they will open up the blooms and make sure that it gets pollinated good enough. Zucchinis and stuff like that, because a lot of times self-pollination is not all that good for them. They don't do good enough, from what I'm learning off of the internet. All right, so seeds and fruits. The seeds are inside the fruiting body. So like blueberry is the fruit, the seeds are on the inside. Let's see if there's something else we want to say about that. Oranges, they've got their fruit, the seeds around it. There was a lady who used to go to our church, and she was adamant that she thought seedless grapes and seedless watermelons and all that were an abomination to the Lord, because she said God made them with seeds in them. And I was like, I have never thought about that, but you might be right. I don't know, but I still like seedless grapes. But she was like, no, don't buy them. They're an abomination. I was like, never thought about taking a biblical stance on grapes. But she did, lady at my church. Anyway, germination is once the seed starts growing into a new plant. Now, seeds can last thousands of years waiting to grow into a new plant and then grow into a new plant. They have found seeds in pyramids in Egypt that are thousands of years old, and then grown them, and they're fine. They'll grow. So are seeds alive? Yeah, but they're kind of in like stasis. They're like suspended animation until the conditions are right, and then they'll grow. And there's a lot of things that do that. Bacteria can do that. Viruses can do that. So that's where they get those sci-fi things like, the Mummy and stuff, right? But anyway, you can Google it with your mom's permission and help. But they have gotten some seeds from ancient Israel or Egypt, and they just grew them and made them into beer because they wanted to know what ancient beer tasted like. But I think that's just very cool and fascinating. When my brother went to Berry College in Georgia, and when he was there, they had some seeds in the horticulture department that had been like a couple of 100 years old, and they sprouted them and grew them, and they were just fine. It's really cool. I think they were some flower seeds that they did, but they had been around since the founding of the college, and they decided to grow them and to see if they would grow, and they did. So very interesting. All right, so for your lab, you're going to be growing some seeds. and also rooting some bulbs and like a carrot top and a garlic bulb or an onion, something like that. And then I still think you should have the plant swap. That'll be fun. So, and remember, if it's an asexual reproduction, it's a clone. So don't think that clones are all mind-numbed robots that are going to take over the world. They have just been created asexually or through twins. I never told you how identical twins make. When we have that chapter on reproduction about how the egg and sperm come together and make the new organism, that on that first division where it's one cell and it becomes two, sometimes they do it too hard and it becomes two daughter cells and two complete organisms that grow into new organisms. So identical twins for one day were one organism, but on that first division they became their own organism, because instead of just dividing into two, they divided completely into clones, into two organisms that have the same exact genetic blueprint. Now, are twins exactly alike genetically? Yes, but actually no. Like I have cousins who are identical twins, and there are more to your appearance than just your genetic blueprint. What you eat affects your appearance, your nutrition and things like that. So now, when they were kids, I couldn't tell them apart, but now they look very different. One of the twins stayed single and has been very careful to always eat healthy and exercise and stuff like that, where the other kid became a dad of 7 kids, and he was more relaxed about things like that. And you can tell, because they made different nutritional choices and stuff like that, that now that they're in their 50s, they look a little different. So that's kind of interesting. Also, when I taught public school, but the first time, now I'm back to public school again, I had some identical twin students who, one of them was born with a heart defect, and even though it was repaired, he wasn't as healthy, and you could definitely tell a difference in those two students, because one had a health issue that the other one didn't have. And even though they were identical twins, they were not identical. So genetically they were the same, but their appearance was not the same. All right, so that is it for our class. Yay! So read the chapter, do your homework, do your labs, take your final test, come back and do another class if you like this one. Tell your friends, like, share, subscribe. And I don't get any money from these videos because my channel's not big enough, but I'd love to actually make money from this someday. So like, share, subscribe, share it with your homeschool community. Let them know that there are these free math and science classes out there for high schoolers that are designed for homeschoolers, where the labs are doable without a teacher. The classes are doable without a teacher. That they're pretty easy to learn with the videos and the text independently. So I hope you enjoyed it. Sign up for another class, start another one next year, and you'll see more. And remember, I have math too. So I have pre-algebra, Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2. After you finish Algebra 2, you're ready to go take college algebra at your local community college. You don't need to take pre-calculus or calculus. You're ready for college algebra. And then science, I have physical science, biology, chemistry, physics. And so 4 math, 4 science, and hope you enjoyed it. I did, and hopefully you'll see me again in another video. Math is great. Science is great.